If I were to ask you to name a fantasy franchise, what's the first one that would come to mind? Game of Thrones, Dungeons & Dragons, The Elder Scrolls, the 1977 classic Wizards maybe? Lord of the Rings. You would name Lord of the Rings. It's a no-brainer. The Lord of the Rings books were popular enough in their own right, but I feel like it's impossible to think about them without tying them to the Peter Jackson films these days. It's tough to think of Lord of the Rings without picturing Elijah Wood as Frodo, or picturing those massive battle scenes, or bringing up that Viggo Mortensen accidentally broke his toe when he kicked that helmet. Peter Jackson's Return of the King is arguably the best film in the trilogy, and it even holds the record for the most amount of Oscars won by a single film. If you look up Return of the King on Google, you don't even get results back for the book. The first 5 or 6 results are just... Wait, what is that? That's right. There's another adaptation of Return of the King that came out in 1980, and it's something. I just realized I'm still wearing headphones, so we're taking those off. Those are coming off for the rest of that video. This version of Return of the King is actually technically a sequel to the version of The Hobbit that came out a few years earlier. They were each created by a pair of studios called Rankin & Bass and Topcraft, both of which have their own catalogs of work. Rankin & Bass made all those old animated stop-motion Christmas movies like Frosty the Snowman and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And Topcraft actually became Studio Ghibli after Hayao Miyazaki bought the studio and all its assets once it shut down, which means that this is only one step removed from this. I feel insane whenever I bring this movie up because I had it on VHS and me and my brother used to watch it all the time, and so to me this is the definitive version of Return of the King, or at least it was for a long time. But when you talk to people about Return of the King, I guess nobody knows about this. I feel like I was crazy growing up because I would bring this up and nobody would know what I was talking about. I guess I just assumed it was popular. It wasn't. I was also too young to watch the actual Return of the King, so when people started talking about it, I would assume that they were talking about this movie, and then I would be proven wrong when I start humming some of the songs from this movie, which we'll get to. We'll get to the music. Just you wait. Alright, I'm excited for this. Let's get into it. Let's get into the movie.
Hear you now, a story of good against evil. An epic. What mighty lord, you may ask, is hero enough to evoke such cosmic metamorphosis? Why, no lord at all, but the littlest of fellows.
The movie opens with Frodo and Sam heading to Rivendell to help celebrate Bilbo's 129th birthday. And they literally put 129 candles on his cake and he just houses them. He just blows them all out in one go. Bilbo starts reminiscing about his own adventures from The Hobbit, I assume. This scene's actually taking place after the events of the movie, which means we're gonna get the whole thing in a flashback. I guess this is their way of getting around the fact that they never made a movie about the first 2 books and they just have to do the 3rd one here. Either way, Sam and Frodo light the hell up, and that's what launches us into the actual story of this movie. This is a good time to bring up that the movie has a few musical moments and they actually go pretty hard. The first song basically recaps Bilbo's adventure from The Hobbit and sets up where Frodo and Sam are gonna go, and ladies and gentlemen, this is a hook.
Frodo of the 9 fingers and the Ring of Doom.
Gandalf takes over a lot of the storytelling here, and we see that Frodo's basically gotten the snot kicked out of him by orcs. I actually really like the orc design in this movie because it feels so different from the orcs that we're used to. They're not green and slimy, they kind of just look like these weird white bulldogs or something. It's cool. I really like it. We get another musical piece and a little montage through the opening credits to once again remind us that, hey, Frodo and Sam went to Mordor, just in case we forgot. This song actually goes really hard too, and these intro credits show us that Jules Bass did a lot of the lyric work himself, working alongside the composer for the studio, Maury Laws. He also wrote books after the studio shut down, including the one that the Selena Gomez classic Monte Carlo is based on, so we have Gollum to thank for this. Anyway, Sam's trying his best to get into Mordor to save Frodo, and in the process of doing so, stumbles on the ring. He then says this.
Oh, I can feel you throbbing with excitement.
I have no words. He also finds Frodo's sword and cloak, so I guess Frodo just dropped his entire inventory when the orcs attack. He finds the tower Frodo's chilling in, and he's about to go in when the ring just stops him. Which I guess makes sense because the tower's probably full of orcs and he would just die immediately if he went in there. But then he just yells out to Frodo anyway, which completely defeats the purpose of being stealthy.
I do it for you, Frodo! I must be ring bearer now!
Sam decides to go destroy the ring on his own, and in the middle of another song, he briefly considers taking the ring himself. And this scene's kind of weird because we get this daydream sequence from Sam, and in it he basically pictures Mordor turning into this green utopia, and then he just animorphs all the orcs into a platypus and a bird and just weird animals. It seems a little harsh, maybe. I don't know. He snaps out of it though, thanks to
Plain hobbit since.
and decides he'd rather just chill in his own little garden. This means we're getting another song and another flashback sequence, which is 2 back-to-back, if you're keeping count. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, Sauron's armies are dominating the battlefield outside of Minas Tirith, and oh my god, what the hell is that? These things gave me so many nightmares as a kid. I mean, like, look at that. They're almost as scary as Sam. It's okay, though, because now we get Pippin time. Let's go! Pippin and Gandalf try to convince Denethor not to set the entire city on fire, but he's not having it. I genuinely have no idea what Denethor is saying for half of these scenes. I think he's rambling about the, like, crystal ball that
Palantir, the stuff of wizards.
Palantir that he has, but I can't really make out what he's saying, and I gave up trying halfway through. Long story short, he's gonna torch Minas Tirith because the ball tells him that they're all screwed. We're back with Sam at this point, and he's tripping out over these stone birds until he remembers that they're stone. Luckily for him, though, he can tell the difference between them and orcs.
Orcs aren't made of stone. They have ears.
He then proceeds to hit an invisible wall, nay, and pull out a piece of uranium to open the door. Yeah, I actually have no idea what this thing is supposed to be. It sparkled and it made cool sounds, and like, who doesn't want one of those? The alarms go off once he gets inside, but the orcs inside have all already killed each other for some reason. Except for this one that steps out like a Dark Souls boss. Sam activates cheats and the orc just dips. Sam catches up and finds out that apparently all the orcs killed each other in a competition for Frodo's cloak. Talk about drip or drown, am I right? Sam then bullies the orc off the cliff. He keeps looking for Frodo until, after he kills another orc with fall damage, he shares a tender moment with Frodo, until he shows Frodo that he's still got the ring, at which point Frodo just like mean mugs the hell out of him.
You filthy, slimy thief!
But then he just drops it and everything is fine, I guess. The boys spend some time traveling through Mordor until they're too tired to go on, and then they wake up to the best song in this entire movie.
Where there's a whip, there's a way. Where there's a whip, there's a way. Where there's a whip, we don't want to go to war today. But the Lord of the Lashes says, nay, nay, nay.
My money's officially on those guys now. I don't think you can lose with a battle march that's that awesome. Sam and Frodo get mistaken for orcs somehow, and then they get tossed into the army, and it doesn't make any sense. They don't look anything like orcs. I don't know how this guy even got into the orc army, because he's clearly too blind to go into combat. Regardless, they...
I'd rather be singing a good old Hobbit song myself.
No, you wouldn't, Sam. You're lying. The hobbits escape when the orcs run into an army of humans and get into an argument about who gets to use the road. At this point, Sam and Frodo are absolutely gassed, and Sam almost gets a third kill by fall damage.
Mr. Frodo!
Back at Minas Tirith, it's time for Grond. I want a Grond. The Witch King shows up and his sword just... I didn't put that sound effect in here. I have no idea why his sword sounds like a checkmark. Is he the coolest character in this movie, though? The adaptation of Sauron's armies in this movie are just like way cooler than Peter Jackson's versions, in my opinion. It's just like so much more menacing and badass than in the Peter Jackson ones. Like the orcs and the ringwraiths are scary enough in Peter Jackson's movies, but I remember just feeling such literal dread watching this as a kid because these characters are just so creepy. The character design is just super cool. Gandalf tries to hit the Witch King with a "You shall not pass" and gets laughed at. And that makes him a little less creepy. We don't get to see them fight yet though because we have to watch Sam and Frodo fall down another hill. Then there's a Gollum jump scare. They just made him like this green monkey with fish eyes. He's got all this weird like hair hanging from his crotch. He's also got no loincloth in this movie, so I guess turning into Gollum just like removed his penis. But you know, I think this scene is missing something. Sam is gonna kill Gollum, but he begs for his life, and Sam calls him cringe,
Pitiful and cringe.
and makes him leave instead, which is the dumbest thing he's done in this entire movie. We go back to Minas Tirith and get more Pippin, baby, let's go, look at that sick kill, he's cracked. Theoden falls off his horse and dies, which I think means that more people have died in this movie from falling than from literal swords. Mary is very torn up about this, which doesn't make a lot of sense, because we didn't really get to see the relationship.
Oh, the horror!
But we don't have time to think about it because we're back to Frodo and Sam. Frodo just starts Christian Bale walking into Mount Doom and then he just vanishes. We don't have time to think about that because we're back to the Witch King. Eowyn shows up to the battlefield to kill the Witch King in one of the most iconic scenes from Return of the King. There's like an Oppenheimer and Barbie joke in here somewhere, I think, between the two of them. Eowyn one-taps the Witch King's dragon and then wombo combos the Witch King with an assist from Merry. The orcs respond pretty reasonably by throwing themselves into a river and drowning. We get some stuff about Aragorn here, but he's such a minimal part of this movie that he really only exists to make fun of Gandalf in this one scene.
Why so glum, wizard? Does the mere thought of Sauron's vast forces overwhelm your spirit?
The armies of men head towards Mordor to help out, and this is the only time we get to see Legolas and Gimli, which kind of sucks. They don't even have any lines. They just show up in these two shots. I think it's really weird that this adaptation just decided to sideline two of its coolest characters. The fact that there's no Legolas and no Gimli in this just makes zero sense whatsoever. Maybe I think that they're cooler than they actually are in the book because I'm thinking of Peter Jackson's versions, but either way it's a shame. It's just kind of a bummer. Also, their Battle March song absolutely sucks.
Win the battle, lose the war.
The Mouth of Sauron is here.
I am the mouth of Sauron.
He basically tells the humans to get bent, and we don't have time to think about it because we're back again to Frodo and Sam. This is it, the big finale to the movie. This is Frodo's final chance to turn away from the edge of evil. Hold on a minute, why did we start this story again?
Frodo of the Nine Fingers and the Ring of Doom.
Oh, yeah, that. Gollum dies by, you guessed it, falling. And then we watch the entire orc army die to falling too. I feel like there's some sort of message in here about safety at high altitudes, but it doesn't make a lot of sense because the eagles immediately swoop in and just pick everybody up hundreds of feet in the air to save them. Frodo tells Sam to die.
Die well, Samwise.
And then the eagles save them too. We get one more musical montage where Aragorn's crowned as king and we finally cut back to the original party in Rivendell. And Bilbo's been snoozing through the whole movie, which means I have to start at the beginning again. Anyway, we get this nice little wrap-up scene where Frodo and Elrond and Gandalf all decide they're going across the sea to the west, which I think means that they're all gonna die. Regardless, the movie closes on one last montage and the remaining hobbits wave goodbye. So there you go. There's a little peek into a part of my childhood. Once again, I thought this movie was way more popular than I guess it actually is, but I thought it'd be fun to share, so there you go. It's a little boring in the modern day, but all in all, I think it holds up pretty well, minus the occasional goofy bits, and there's like little awkward stuff, but it's pretty good overall. If you got a movie or a show you think I should look at, go ahead and put it in the comments below. I'm gonna try to put out a video a month, but I guess we'll see how it goes. At any rate, I hope you have a good time and a long time, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Later.